you see me? I'm in a bit of a cloud. Been hiking the White Mountains in New Hampshire. So, welcome to the EconoChallenge, and welcome to my not so wild vlog. If you've never hiked the White Mountains, there is literally a picture around every corner. This is our third major hike up a peak. We've visited 4 peaks altogether, and this will be our 5th and 6th today, and we're bringing you along. We just entered the alpine zone on this particular peak, Mount Pierce, and as you can see, we're socked in. Not much of a view. It's a pretty cloudy day. Okay, so what was just a few minutes of video for you guys was most of the day for us, and I really did plan on bringing you along on this hike, but unfortunately I made a couple of mistakes. Allow me to explain. Okay, my first mistake was thinking that I was making the plans for today, and actually you have to plan around Mother Nature and whatever she has planned for you. You should always check the weather report, and I did. But my second mistake was assuming that the weather report I checked was good for the whole state of New Hampshire. And there is a big difference between the southern part of the state and the northern part of the state. And as I was reminded by the locals, the mountains is a microclimate and they make their own weather. The weather report I checked this morning said sunny all day. The actual weather report for the northern part where the mountains are, where we are, was for thunderstorms all day. Yes, it was cloudy on top of Mount Pierce, but it really looked to me like it was going to burn off and be a sunny day just like the weather report, but that's not what happened. After shooting that beautiful time lapse, we headed down from the peak of Mount Pierce towards the Mizpah hut. Our intention was to have some lunch there and then carry on to the peak of Mount Jackson and then finish the hike down the other side of the mountain to the trailhead. What happened was, when we got to the Mizpah hut, it was just starting a thunderstorm. We couldn't actually see it. It was coming from behind the mountain, but by the time you could see it, it was right over our head. So we headed into the hut, and there was no filming in the hut. The caretaker of the hut did not want to be on video and wasn't really keen on me shooting any video. So I took some pictures of the hut. Here you can see some of the stuff that you can buy if you happen to bring money up a mountain to the hut. It has a nice area where we ate lunch and weathered out the first thunderstorm. And quite correctly, the caretaker advised us to stay put until the thunderstorm passed, because you do not want to be on an exposed peak during a thunderstorm. And so we followed his advice and we stayed there until it passed. But then the sun came out, and so we decided that it was time to carry on our planned hike. What we really should have done was head right back down the mountain. But just as we were about to head out of the alpine zone and head to the peak of Mount Jackson, another thunderstorm descended on us. And you have to remember, you're on a mountain, so you're not under the thunderstorm, you're in it, and that thunder and lightning is happening all around you. The wind picked up and the rain started, and it was quite an unnerving experience. So we stayed put. We sheltered in place at the edge of the tree line, waiting for the storm to pass. And when we felt it was safe, we headed over the peak of the mountain and down the Webster Jackson Trail towards the trailhead. Now obviously we made it. We're fine now. In fact, Our stuff's drying out and the sun has come out again. And it's quite lovely down here towards the base of the mountain. But it was a really sobering reminder that Mother Nature's running the show and you need to plan around her agenda for the day. Okay, we're down safely at the bottom, but that's still not the coolest story of this trip. For that, we have to take you up Mount Washington. Climbing Mount Washington was amazing to do. It's the tallest peak in the White Mountains after all, but the peak is a little anticlimactic. The views are spectacular, but it's just covered in tourists that have driven up here. Now try to imagine spending 4 to 5 hours clawing your way to the top of this mountain and finding this.
Now listen.
First of all, there's all these people up here, and you weren't expecting that. Some of them in flip-flops. And then you find a gift shop. One woman even complained that they needed to install an escalator for the dozen or so stairs from the parking lot to the summit. I mean, it's really quite amazing, but it's also anticlimactic. And standing in line behind a bunch of people who drove up here to get a picture in front of the peak sign. Wow. Wow. So I came back to the White Mountains today to tell you a little story. Don't worry, I didn't hike up here today. I drove up here. I wasn't going to hike all the way up this mountain with all this camera equipment. That would be a little much. But it's one of the coolest stories of the White Mountain trip so far. At least it was really cool for me. I'm always joking with my daughter when we go out into public places, just teasing her. I'll say to her, I'm really surprised that nobody's noticed me from my YouTube channel. Having 11,000 subscribers is a little bit of a joke, but the most amazing thing happened to me on the hike up Mount Washington. I met 3 guys on the trail coming down, and one of them said, "Jeep?" And I turned around and he said, "I watch your YouTube channel." It's the first time I've ever been recognized from my YouTube channel, and it happened on the side of the trail up Mount Washington. It blew my mind. But the story got even better. Two days later, hiking up a completely different trail. I mean, you got to think about it. There are hundreds of miles of trails snaking all the way through these mountains. and I ran into the same three guys again, and that's when I met Glenn, Tom, and Steve. So this is my little shout out to the three of you guys, especially Glenn, who recognized me. Thank you for giving me one of the most memorable times of my trip. You guys are awesome. And if you ask me, they've got pretty good taste in selecting hiking trails. So, from the top of Mount Washington in the White Mountains, I want to thank you for watching the EconoChallenge, and I look forward to seeing you in the comments down below. Bye for now.